Hi guys, it is Renee, Truth Factor here, and got only a few headlines. I think what's more interesting is the lack of news on some things that I know, and Google playing tricks. I'll explain here in a minute. Causing me to run late here. Hey, Matt, and how are you? Just so everyone knows, I am live on Josh Who TV as well, and I have a link to that in the description. Hi, Boho, how are you? And I am going to drop real quick the link to the Wixit site. And there is the Wixit site, so you can look at the articles if you want to as I go through it. Hi, sweet Jenna, how are you, hon? Hello, Boho. Hello, Batten. I don't know who else I saw in there. I don't get to see the text whenever I'm streaming like this, and until I get used to this Josh Who TV. I don't know. Trying to get everything adjusted here, and then hopefully I'll be able to switch up and stream vice versa here before too long. Anyway, I want to start off with the weather. Hey, Gloria, how are you, honey? I mean, I don't know about blessed. I hear you. I don't know about you guys, but when you have one area that is having several, and I mean several earthquakes, you would think you'd be able to find an article in retrospect to it. Well, last night after headlines and Bible study and everything else, I was on the phone with a friend, and we were talking, and we were watching, we were having an OSOE party, and that's what we're going to call it. Hey, Mama, how are you? And I'll show you what I'm talking about before we get into the first little tidbit here. Let me find my article. Okay. This here little nifty little site has everything you need to know when it happens globally, anywhere in the world. You get earthquake updates, volcano updates, you get the updates from things that come close to the Earth's atmosphere. It gives you any kind of hazmat, current emergency, short time events. Like right now, I know 7 hours ago at 3:43, there was a vehicle accident in Morocco, and it says that the level threat was rather elevated. And then you can click on it, and you can get further information about that, and it tells me that it was public and private transportation. It says it determined to have occurred or to be ongoing. The scope is for general dissemination to unrestricted audiences. It was a vehicle accident. It says it was in the continent was Africa, and the country. Anyway, it says there's 8 people that died from this serious accident, and 42 people injured. And anyway, so you can get, all kinds of, and that's just the summary, and then you can get the description of it, and you can go into even more detail over what happened here. And then I'll go and I'll just for this one story here. Local media said that 8 people died and 42 others were wounded as a bus flipped on Sunday in Bab Marzouka town in Morocco, around 300 kilometers east of Rabat capital. The wounded people have been transported to a local hospital. Authorities said that the investigation was launched to determine the circumstances of the incident. Deadly traffic accidents are common in Morocco, usually resulting from speeding, bad conditions of the roads, and reckless driving. So it was. So you can really find out a lot of stuff at this RSOE website. But anyway. So I'm going to kind of just scroll down here, and I'm going to show you where I'm at. And I'm going to, of course, it updates, and I think it only does like a, how far does this go down? For 12 hours. After 12 hours, no, I guess it goes further than that. 16 hours. But because it's so globally or whatever, I guess it only goes for so long into the 16th hour. And then it changes. And I can show you, let's see, how am I going to do this? Because what I need to show you is down here at the bottom. See if you can see this. I don't know. Hopefully you guys can see this. Where you see the highlighted area, and it tells you that's the magnitude of it. And over here is like the location. Well, last night, as I was watching this, well, we were paying attention to it. It wasn't just me. You would have thought I was some kind of a meteorologist trying to, or some kind of, something to do with science more than what, just doing headlines here, as much as I was watching this last night. But we noticed that Alaska was quite active last night. And I'm going to show you something else that you can see that's really rather cool. That I've had this site for forever, and I really never do a whole lot on it, except for every now and then I'd go and check it. But we were exploring it last night, or this morning. Anyway, so there was a 6.1 earthquake, and according to this, there was 2 6.1 earthquakes, and the reason I say that according to this is because there was one that was reported like at 5:01 a.m. There was 2 reported at 5:01 a.m., but they're not 2 separate ones. It was just one, but it was reported by different agencies, okay? Because this doesn't just use the USGS. This uses the USGS, the EMSC, and IRSC, and the GeoNet. It uses all kinds of different, resources. But it also lists the everything, okay? So besides that it had 2 separate incidences that we believe that were 2, because one was at 5 and then there was another one at 4, or there was one at 4:01 and then one at 5:01, which was an hour apart. And it could be that it just took them that long to report, but why would it take an hour to report? That's what I don't understand. But then there was a tsunami alert, and you can't find activated yesterday. And you can't find, I couldn't find a story about it. I searched it and could not find it anywhere. And then I'll show you here. You can see that there was, hopefully you can see, there was a 4.4 that happened shortly after the 6.1. Now, a 4.4 is probably not nothing that most people would write home about. But it just shows you that how active it is. And then you can go down here and you can look. And of course, it definitely tells you about how the, the action with the volcanoes, and it gives you this update and everything else. So you know that earthquakes and volcanoes are definitely related. Anyway, so where did we see it? Oh mercy, California. There it is. Okay, so, and like I said, you can go down and you can get this and you can look and see the times, and it tells you the times. It gives you an update when there's a change. Now we noticed that it takes a minute longer for these volcano updates. Like the earthquake happened in California last night. It was a small earthquake. It wasn't nothing to, it wasn't a 6.1, but I can't even remember what, I think it was like a 2.1. But even though it was just, hey MG, how are you? I'm looking at chat on my phone. All I see is your text. Anyway, so it tells me that there was activity about the same time that there was that small 2-point earthquake. There was action at that volcano in California. Right about the same time we had that small earthquake. So even though it's a small earthquake, big things are happening, I say. There's a lot of movement everywhere. Then we found something, and I think that we found all kinds of stuff with this that I think it was just so cool. Oh my goodness sakes, where did it go, George? Oh, here it is. Okay. Let me see, what am I looking at chat for? Hold on, guys, let me see. My screen is vertical. Yeah, I know it is. I have, oh, you text me? Yeah, no, well, I don't think the texts come in, MG, whenever, the phone, I'm on my phone. I have, I'm doing Josh Who TV, and I have Josh Who going, live right now, and I also have YouTube going live. So I'm doing both, things. Link. Josh Who TV, link for what? Oh, you want a link to the RSOE? Sure. Anyway, I wanted to show you guys this real cool thing. Okay, so I see what was going on there. Ah, I hate this guy. Oh, no. Well, we don't care about the map. It can be like that. So we're going down here to our close projectile thingies, okay? And, let me see. Okay. Let me see if I can show you guys this. All right. So here are the things that come close to the Earth as they approach them. And it gives you the name of the object, the distance, the AU distance, how many days left. So we're gonna click on the one that was it gives you details. And this is like the most coolest thing here. And you can see from this, let me see, I gotta show up here. I'm gonna show down here. And you can, on this one, move, and you can see it like a 3D, and it switches. It's so cool. And the other person that was watching this and I was talking to this morning, she says you can hit play and it plays on the computer. I can't do it now because I'm on, like I said, Josh Who TV, and I don't like, I've got the OBS and how it always messes up. So, but I thought that was pretty cool to where you could see how exactly, how close this object is to us in our atmosphere and everything else. Anyway, so and I will give you guys a link. Give me just a second. See if this will. You can't see anything? I'm sorry. I tried to show it, but it's difficult. It's not full screen. I'm sorry. So anyway, so I just showed you where we saw quite a few earthquakes. I showed you the earthquakes that happened in Alaska, and then of course that we had the close proximity. Hi Colleen, how are you? Action there, and it's just really cool tool to have and to look at. You can stay in the know. Sorry. Okay, so they did have the only news that I could find about the volcanoes yesterday was from Volcano Discovery, and there might be something in a local paper up there, but whenever you put it in your search engine, you usually go with what you can find the quickest, and this is what came up. It says there was a strong mag 6.0 earthquake in Amaganek Island, Alaska. And again, that's all the information that it really gives. I mean, it gives you the local time, and it was like at 10 o'clock, it says, on the 1st, it's saying it happened on the 1st, but, and that's basically all it gives you. But there was a tsunami warning that went in effect because of this, because of one of the, I want to say because of the 6.0 or 6.1. Like I said, they downgrade, I think, a lot of these earthquakes. So I want to say that we were watching it, and I encourage anyone that is trying to keep up with the Cascadia to definitely click onto that site, because you can honestly see, you'll see where all the action is as far as earthquakes that are taking place, and it's just I like it better than the USGS. Yep, you got the link. You shared the same link that I just shared. Did you not get the link that I put in there? Yeah, there, it's in there. I got it. Gloria's got it. So that is the link, guys, and yeah, and it's pretty cool. Like I said, for all the action, you would have thought that there would have been. You found it by clicking on the link. Okay, so for all this stuff that was happening, you would think that there would have been more news, especially the tsunami would have been, because there was a tsunami warning issued. You could find the information on it last night, but you couldn't find it on it today, which goes to show you, I don't know. Anyway, hi Amos, how are you, honey? So we're gonna go on. That is the news about and I will stick this link in in my Wixit link too. I don't have that link there yet, but I will. I don't know why I didn't put it there. But anyway, so then we're going to go ahead, and then we're going to, now these stores we did cover last night in Bible study, but I do realize that I have people that don't follow the Bible study that do follow me on the headlines. So for that, we're going to, because these two stories that I'm going to read right now, they broke last night during Bible study. And and this one here was the one that was really was a downer for last night. There was 3 killed in a plane crash near San Antonio International Airport that left Sugarland, it says, and was headed toward Bourne. It says 3 people in the small airplane were killed Sunday night when it crashed near the San Antonio International Airport. At least 26 fire units were dispatched to the 600 block of the West Rhapsody Drive near the San Antonio International Airport around 6:26 p.m. The plane took off from Sugarland, according to the fire chief Charles Hood. The pilot was headed to Bourne, but activated on the alert that indicated he would be attempting an emergency landing at the San Antonio International Airport, Hood said. The plane fell short about 150 yards, crashing into the street, Hood said. Firefighters searched 20-block radius to make sure the engine didn't fall into the structure while the plane was descending. No other injuries were reported, which would not have been the case if the plane crashed onto the highway or into an apartment complex, Hood said. As tragic as it is, it could have been much worse, he said. The plane appeared to be owned by RTW Capital LLC, an Austin company based on the aircraft's tail number. According to the FlightAware's registration information, the plane is a Piper PA 24250, a fixed-wing single-engine craft with 4 seats. Roads in the area were closed while authorities investigated the scene. And that's the second plane crash, guys, that we had yesterday. And of course, the weather was so bad, and I would have just said for such a small craft, it might not have been wise to be traveling in all this, the bad weather, but they're saying that, it was engine failure. So it's still sad. And then we have this story from CNN, and I believe that story was from CNN as well. It says Thanksgiving weekend storms are to blame for a plane sliding off a runway and a 25-car pileup. It says that millions of travelers are stressing out as powerful storms rolling over the East Coast interrupt or delay their return home from the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. The weather has already caused a plane to slip off a runway while it was landing at Buffalo Niagara International Airport Sunday. Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority spokesperson Helen Tiros told CNN via an email. It also led to a 25-vehicle pileup on Interstate 68 in Garrett County, Maryland, about 20 miles from the state's border with West Virginia. State police said heavy fog created limited visibility in the area, and that National Weather Service said that there was a winter storm advisory for that area. A day earlier in Chamberlain, South Dakota, 9 people were killed when a plane crashed during the blizzard-like conditions. Airlines have delayed flights across the country on what is expected to be the busiest travel day in U.S. America. Delta and other airlines issued travel waivers for those who want to cancel or change their plans. On Sunday evening, nearly 6,500 flights were delayed into or out of the United States, and more than 800 had been canceled, according to FlightAware.com. Travel impacts are expected to last through Monday, the Weather Service said. About 50 million in the U.S. are under some kind of winter weather alert. The winter storm terrorizing the Northeast now already pounded the upper Midwest with heavy snow, the National Weather Service said. Meanwhile, the West Coast is dealing with snow, floods, and power outages. Blizzard-like conditions will finish off the holiday weekend in the Great Lakes region. The Weather Service said while up to 12 inches of snow may cover parts of the country spanning from the Dakotas to Michigan, it said. They got 2.5 feet at the Capitol in New York. Wow. That's a lot of snow, Colleen. By Tuesday, parts of the Northeast will see up to a foot of snow. The service said New York will see up to 2 inches of snowfall in an hour Sunday and on Monday. It said making for dangerous roads as the snow piles up. Downed trees and power lines are also possible. Heavy rain will hit New York City on Sunday evening before transitioning to a snow mix by morning. And the city can expect 3 to 5 inches of snow by Monday's end. Forecasters say Governor Andrew Cuomo has placed the National Guard on standby, he said. Rain will stretch from coastal areas in the northeast to farther south, where it will be accompanied by thunderstorms and strong wind gusts, the Weather Service said. A cold front will be positioned from central Ohio, arcing eastward near the Appalachians, then southwestward into Florida Panhandle. It said thunderstorms are possible along that front, but the system should be out of the southeast by Sunday night, according to CNN meteorologist Madeline Chenoist. In Massachusetts, the State of Emergency Management Agency issues an awareness statement warning of 8 to 12 inches of white stuff over much of the state's interior, up to 17 inches on the eastern slopes of the Berkshires. Wind gusts could reach up to 45 miles an hour along the coast, with Cape Ann and outer Cape Cod suffering the worst of the blister. And it says rain and wind in California. A West Coast storm is expected to hammer everything from Seattle to south of Los Angeles, bringing feet of snow to the areas that sit at 6,000 feet or higher. Forecasters advise chains will be necessary to navigate the road in mountainous regions, though whiteout conditions in some areas may make driving especially dangerous. Travel is highly discouraged after 10 a.m. for the coastal range, Shasta County. The Weather Service in Sacramento office warned. Shasta County is located between Sacramento and the Oregon border. Some flooding is possible in parts of the northern California, especially in the areas with burn scars, the service weather said. Meanwhile, the Sierra Nevada could also see snow measured in feet in parts of the Southern California. About 9,600 customers were in the dark. Southern California, Edison said. The utility said the outage was storm related, and winds and snow covered trees downed wires. No Wi-Fi, no electricity, so it's like we're back in the 1800s. Fabris Vajanti, who was in Crestline, about 70 miles east of Los Angeles, told CNN affiliate. So 14 inches of snow still coming down. Wow, you guys are getting hammered, Cody. Up there, and here you were complaining you didn't have any snow up there in the mountains. Mercy. You're getting it now, aren't you, hon? That is crazy, guys. That's it. It says the utility said it would be passing out fireworks to the affected residents with help of the authorities. The storm will linger over the state through Tuesday, the Weather Service said. It says Sunday was expected to be a historically busy day for the U.S. airlines. We'll see an anticipated 3.1 million passengers, according to Airlines for American and airline trade organizations. A record 31.6 million passengers were forecast to travel on the U.S. airlines during the Thanksgiving holiday period. That was up from 3.7% from last year. Due to the delays in cancellation, Delta Airlines announced weather waivers for nearly 24 cities in the Northeast for Sunday and Monday, including airports in Boston and the New York City area. American Airlines issued waivers for passengers traveling Sunday and Monday on flights to and from New York, John F. Kennedy and LaGuardia airports, as well as Newark and the airline's hub in Philadelphia. Other cities in the American Airline announcement include Boston, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Toronto, and Canada. And that's a lot of stuff happening in the news here. And all because of the weather, guys. And then we have this that happened over in India, Tamil Nadu. There was 17 that were killed in Combret as 3 houses collapsed due to heavy rainfall. It says 3 houses collapsed in the Combret in Tamil Nadu as the state battles heavy rainfall since Sunday. As many as 17 people were killed in this incident, including 11 women and 3 children. And that just breaks my heart, guys, to know that children, I mean, I know that they're in these, that it happens, and especially when it's Mother Nature, but it's just so hard to take. So you can see where we're having a global effect, weather-wise, not that it's global warming or anything to that nature, but to hear so many, you know, different issues from via rain, snow, you know, all of it. It's just, it's just sad, guys. It truly is. And then we will go ahead and we're going to switch gears a little, and we're going to go ahead and get into the headlines. Not that those weren't headlines, because those, a couple of those were headlines. But like I said, the earthquake little thingy in the RSOE, I did not put in the Wixit, but I will, guys. I promise I will. Okay, so we're going to start here with Newsweek, where Iran calls for a coalition with states in the region only, but will soon hold war games with Russia and China. Iran has called for a coalition limited to regional countries, but was also set to bolster military ties with Russia and China, two international powers opposed to the U.S.-led efforts to isolate the Islamic Republic. Iranian Supreme National Security Council Secretary Al Shahkahin met Monday in Tehran with Foreign Minister Yusuf bin Ali bin Abdul of Oman, one of the Arab members of the Gulf Cooperation Council. Iran has sought to court into joining a cross-strait coalition for hope, or the Hormuz peace endeavor. The senior Iranian official criticized the U.S. for attempting to form a rival coalition to patrol the Strait of Hormuz, and argued that Iran's own Persian Gulf project would not include any foreign powers. The countries that have had the biggest share in creating tensions and insecurity in the region and plunged the region into chaos and destruction by waging multiple wars and spreading terrorism have never been after the Persian Gulf stability and security, and only seek to fulfill their own interest and plunder the region. Shamkhahin said, according to the semi-official Tasnim news agency. At the same time, however, Tehran has looked to boost its image on the world stage by conducting joint naval drills in the nearby waters elsewhere with two of Washington's top rivals, Moscow and Beijing, though the exact circumstances surrounding the prospective exercises remain uncertain. Some new details have come to light. Speaking Saturday at a naval expedition, Iranian Navy Chief Rear Admiral Hossein Khazad confirmed his forces were still planning to join Russia and Chinese maritime forces for drills said to be in the works for months. He added that the objective of such an exercise is obtaining collective security and assisting in securing the northern region of the Indian Ocean, which is today's witness to certain incidents such as maritime piracy. Days earlier, he told the semi-official Mer news agency that the exercise would hopefully be conducted in December, and that a joint war game between several countries, whether on land, at sea, or in the air, indicates a remarkable expansion of cooperation among them. The message, he said, was that these three countries have reached a meaningful strategic point in their relations with regard to their shared and non-shared interest. And by non-shared, I mean the respect we have for one another's natural interest. Kazan said that they discussed the prospects of such training with Russia in July, but no confirmation came from Moscow for months. Russian Foreign Ministry Sergei Lavrov finally revealed last month that we, the People Republic of China and Iran, are preparing naval drills for fighting terrorists and pirates in this part of the Indian Ocean. But China has so far remained mum since its name was later added to the bill. Both countries were signatories and continue supporters of the U.S. and Iran's 2015 nuclear deal, and endorsed by the European Union, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. President Donald Trump unilaterally left the deal last year, accusing Iran of using financial assets to fund terrorism and develop ballistic missiles. The White House has since hit Tehran with successive rounds of strict sanctions in an attempt to completely sever its international trade ties. As tensions between the two longtime foes mounted in recent months, the U.S. has blamed Iran for episodes of unrest targeting oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman and September attack on oil facilities in Saudi Arabia. Russia and China have avoided assigning responsibility and seeking claim and blaming the U.S. for leaving the nuclear agreement in the first place. Russia and China have both have strategic interest in working with Iran, for the former operating jointly in Tehran in Syria, ongoing civil war, and later looking to expand oil imports from the revolutionary Shiite Muslim power in defiance of the U.S. sanctions. Still, neither sought a direct fight in the Persian Gulf, and both have shored up ties with Iran's regional rival, Saudi Arabia. Though President reports have emerged to Iran-Saudi back channels, Raihid has yet to officially respond to the Coalition for Hope invitation, and prior to the announcement of this initiative, joined the U.S.-led international maritime security construct, also backed by Australian, Bahraini, United Arab Emirates, and the UK. Russia has its own proposal, the China-backed collective security concept for the Persian Gulf, which would see regional cooperation in addition to major powers such as Russia, China, the U.S., and the EU and India. The U.S. has largely ignored these overtures and has ordered the development of thousands of troops to Saudi Arabia, raising regional fears that growing frictions could erupt into a conflict as violence involving Iran and its other top regional advisory. Israel broke out elsewhere in Syria. Washington has so far refused to return the nuclear deal as the precursor of new talks with Tehran. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told audiences at the University of Louisville Monday that the Trump administration's hardline policy toward Iran was designed to keep America safe, to keep it in the Middle East more stable, and to enable the Iranian people to convince the regime that it needs to be changed. It's the way, in the most fundamental and basic way, to just ask Iran to behave like a normal country. And amongst all this, we also know that the EU and all them are coming together over there. There's like 4 countries, I think, that are going on that TASNAC deal and possibly going to give Tehran medical, so they're undermining our sanctions anyway. So but it looks like Iran is just branching out everywhere. And then here's some more China news from RT. It says China suspends review of visits by American warship and sanctions the NGOs in response to the U.S. signing of a Hong Kong bill. It says Beijing has stopped allowing the U.S. Navy vessels to visit Hong Kong and sanction foreign NGOs after President Donald Trump signed a bill which targets China over its response to anti-government protests and riots in the city. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hu Chaiyang said on Monday that China will no longer review requests by the American warship to dock in Hong Kong. The nation has already barred several U.S. Navy ships from visiting Hong Kong in recent months. Hu also announced that the country has sanctioned NGOs such as Human Rights Watch, Freedom House, and the National Democratic Institute for inciting protesters to commit violent crimes and promoting separatism in Hong Kong. These groups are responsible for the current chaos in the city, she told reporters. The spokesperson stressed that the measures are a direct response to the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act 2019. Which was signed into law by Trump's last week. The legislations allowed the U.S. to impose sanctions on Chinese and Hong Kong officials over human rights abuse in Hong Kong. The U.S. lawmakers argued that the law would help to uphold democracy and punish police officials for mistreating peaceful protesters. Beijing, meanwhile, slammed the move as illegal under international law and an attempt to seriously interfere in Chinese domestic affairs. Chinese officials have repeatedly warned Washington against meddling in Hong Kong and accused American politicians who openly backed the protesters of encouraging riots there. And, I don't know what you guys think about that. I have mixed feelings about all that. I mean, I think that, I think we can stand with them, and speak out and say that we stand with them. Now as far as these bills that they're passing on them, I don't know how all of that's going to play out, but
I'm sorry, but I think that what our Democrats are raising so much heck about, other people meddling in our politics,
Yeah,
We're meddling in other people's politics.
that we are.
You know, one clan, one over another.
Exactly.
You know, so
Very true, guys. Very true. Oh, goodness sake. I want this story to... It doesn't want to load, guys. It's because it was an evil story. That was... Let me see. Let me find it again. What is going on? There we go. Alright. Okay, so the Church of Sweden, this is from RT, guys. The Church of Sweden unveils an altarpiece of paradise featuring gay couples and transgender serpent. And it did not want to load on my thing. And I'll show you the picture that they're showing here. For those that don't like to follow or don't go and click on the site. So the Church of Sweden has unveiled this altar piece. And again, I say what happens in your bedroom stays in your bedroom. A church in Malmo has a new altarpiece meant to celebrate inclusivity by replacing the Adam and Eve in paradise with gay couples in a suggestive poses, while depicting the serpent tempting them as a transgender woman. The controversial work of art is not new. Photographer and artist Elizabeth Olsen Wallen painted it in 2012 and tried to donate it to the Skar Cathedral just before the church was preparing to conduct the first same-sex wedding in its 1,000-year history. The only lesbian artist who has a history of blending religiously imagery with pro-minority activism said at the time that she wanted to test it if the Church of Sweden was as gay-friendly as it claimed to be when it embraced same-sex marriage in 2009. The Skara Cathedral politely declined the gift, saying it was about political activism and not faith. But over 7 years have passed, and now Wallen has got her way, even if it isn't in her home city. St. Paul's Church in Malmo accepted the painting called Paradise as its new altarpiece and unveiled it on Sunday, the first day of Advent. Helena Mersner, the pastor, said the history was written in the hanging of the LGBT altarpiece as she tweeted a photo of the painting. Wallen's re-imaging of Paradise was inspired by one of the works by a Renaissance master, Lucas Cranach the Elder. The artist activist said she wanted to show that since the beginning of time, the place for gay people was in paradise rather than hell. The modern interpretation, interestingly, seems more prudish in terms of nudity than the 16th century original, as both lesbian Eves have their breasts covered by leaves rather than concealing only their genitals, as is traditional. But it's probably not because the artist has problems with nudity. All her most famous photo exhibition, the 2012 Bible-inspired Ec Homo, featured an image portraying the baptism of Jesus, with the model standing for Christ having his penis fully exposed. Rather alarming there. The Church of Sweden, the state church of Scandinavian country until 2000, and still by far it's the largest denomination, prides itself on embracing a laundry list of woke agendas. Despite this, Swedes have been leaving the church in record numbers lately, according to the surveys. Judging by some comments on social media, the new altarpiece won't help much with stopping the exodus. The politicization has gone too far. One member commented on the news as she announced leaving the church. Another one said that while there were plenty of enlightened priests in the Church of Sweden, radicals from the PC pact have turned it into their own arena. And you can go too far with something. And obviously, I think this is definitely taking it too far. And I don't know if I showed this up here on my Josh Hughes, so bear with me, guys. Did it?
Mm-hmm.
And there's such a delay that I won't know until. Crazy stuff, guys. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And then we have, and now that story, I had to load that story twice because it didn't want to come up. And, and then the other one article comes up. Go figure. Okay, so repaired carrier USS Truman deploys to the European waters months behind schedule. This comes from Sputnik News. The U.S. Navy aging aircraft carrier, the USS Harry Truman, entered European waters on Sunday en route to the Middle East. The warship attempted to depart months ago, but an electrical failure forced it to back into a port for repairs. According to a Tuesday statement by the U.S. Sixth Fleet, the 21-year-old Truman entered the eastern Atlantic Ocean on Sunday on its way to relieve the USS Abraham Lincoln, another Nimitz class carrier that's been patrolling the Arabian Sea and the Persian Gulf since May, when tensions began to heat up with Iran. The ship and 90-plane storage air wing were supposed to relieve the Lincoln in September, but a massive electrical failure shortly after leaving port forced the Truman to return to Hampton Roads, Virginia for repairs, which were completed in early November. For a brief moment, early single U.S. carrier based on the country's east coast was in a port for repairs, some of which will take years to complete, the Sputnik reported. The crews and the equipment being used to overhaul other ships were reassigned to the Truman to return the ship to sea as quickly as possible. The Trump administration briefly considered scrapping the Truman earlier this year in a bid to save money, but protests by the Pentagon forced the White House to backtrack, extending the 100,000-ton ship life past 2024. The Truman is accompanied by two Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers on its voyage into the Mediterranean. The U.S. Bainbridge and the USS McFall, USNI, reported. Stars and Stripes noted that the Truman will briefly meet up for an exercise with the Italian forces near Naples before continuing on to the Arabian Sea via the Suez Canal. So that's good to hear. I think we already initially had a report that it was already out, or already headed out, that it was already fixed. But it looks like it's a little late, but better late than never, I always say. Then we also have Esper saying that the U.S. troop reduction in Afghanistan, not necessity, dependent on the Taliban agreement. And this comes from Sputnik News. So the U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper has told Reuters Monday that cutbacks in the U.S. troop numbers in Afghanistan are not necessarily contingent on a peace deal with the Taliban. I feel confident that we would reduce our numbers in Afghanistan and still ensure that place doesn't become a safe haven for terrorists who could attack the United States, Esper told Reuters on Monday. And our allies agree we can make reductions as well. His comments follow a visit by the U.S. President Donald Trump to Afghanistan last week, in which Trump told Afghan President Ashraf Ghani that the U.S. plans on reducing its troops deployed in the country from 14,000 to 8,000. While Trump didn't explicitly tie the withdrawal to a peace deal with the Taliban militant group, he did indicate that such an agreement might still be in the works, despite his canceling a meeting to consecrate a ceasefire in September. The Taliban wants to make a deal, Trump said at Bagram Air Force Base on Thursday, and we are meeting with them. We say it has to be a ceasefire, and they didn't want to do a ceasefire, and now they want to do a ceasefire. I believe it will probably work out that way. Trump also recently expressed hope that a prisoner exchange earlier this month would be the first step toward a new peace deal. The U.S. also recently withdrew most of the forces from Syria, although roughly 500 U.S. troops have remained in the country's east, where they are securing oil wells and continuing operations against Daesh in connection with the Kurdish militias. And then we have the U.S. is vowing to prevent Venezuela, Cuba from hijacking protests in Latin America, from Pompeo, Sputnik News reports. 5 Latin American countries, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Ecuador, and Venezuela, have been facing protests over the course of this year due to various socio-economic reasons, with some of them turning into riots and even coups. The U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo stated that Washington will be helping governments in Latin America that it considers legitimate to prevent protests from turning into violent riots. While speaking at the University of Louisville on the 2nd of December, Pompeo argued that such riots do not reflect the democratic will of the people of those in the countries. He also vowed that the U.S. will take steps to prevent Cuba and Venezuela from hijacking those protests. The Secretary of State accused these countries of inviting bad actors into the region and trying to turn the U.S. allied democracies into dictatorships. Pompeo justified Washington taking part in the anti-riot efforts by saying that the U.S. represents the greatest example in democracy in history of the world. At least 5 Latin American states, including Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Ecuador, and Venezuela, have suffered to varying degrees from protests in 2019, with some of them turning bloody. The protests in Ecuador continued until mid-October and were originally sparked by the government's decision to abolish the country's fuel subsidy, in line with the austerity measures agreed upon the country and the IMF. The Chilean rallies were triggered by the government decision to increase the fare of the Santiago subway, as the country has been suffering from lasting economic woes. The mass protests in Bolivia erupted after the government announced the results of the 20 October 2019 election and the victory of the incumbent President Evo Morales, and with the opposition and demonstrations accusing the former president of fraud. Morales was forced to give up his post and flee the country after the country's military decided to side with the protesters. Venezuela has also suffered from mass protests that turned violent at certain points, but at the same time, its government, long opposed to the U.S., didn't support in Washington, but rather reverse. The U.S. supported self-proclaimed interim President Juan Guaido, who sought to oust legitimately elected President Nicolas Maduro, according to a media report and accusations made by Caracas itself. Washington even funded Guaido's unsuccessful coup attempt in April of 2019. Lots of stuff happening still. These protests, and now Washington says that they're going to stand up. Go figure. It says, I'm not sure. Go figure. Looks like I'm having some issues on Joshua TV. It looks like it went offline. I'm trying to reconnect. Go figure, guys. Of course I'm live. Unsuccessful coup attempt in April of 2019. Alright, I'm back on. I don't know. It's hard trying to keep up with these two streams sometimes. I'm not sure how long I was in lingo there. Okay, so Zero Hedge. Now, I'm to Zero Hedge. I want to talk about this lovely article. This article, hopefully, I will get it on the Wixit site. This one article is not on the Wixit site because whenever I went to Google, I'm going to see if it will let me put it in there now. Because earlier it would not, it said, it was like the, You couldn't even get to Zero Hedge for a good minute. It told me, and now it's going. And earlier it would not go. It told me that it was that site was harmful, and it was giving me a warning that it was a site that steals your, you know, it was blocking it. And I'm like, do I? And it's Zero Hedge, guys. And I've been using Zero Hedge forever. Never had an issue trying to get a story out. And I thought, this is no, you know, it's not, I don't think it's anything that is a breaking story by Zero Hedge, but for whatever it's working again. But for whatever reason, it did not want to load. And I thought, wow, it's pretty crazy. Anyway, and I guess I probably should have read this story whenever we were talking about the global weather and all that, but Madrid opens with point of no return. Climate scaremongering, but where's Greta? After previously finding herself stuck in the wrong place halfway around the world, when the United Nations moved its global climate meeting from Chile to Spain, young climate activist Greta Thunberg is running a little late to the Madrid 25th conference of the parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Though lacking in creating the same guilt-laced terror and panic-laden atmosphere that Greta has proved herself capable of, there was still plenty of climate apocalypse fear-mongering during Monday's opening remarks to kick off the conference. Sans Greta, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres declared the point of no return is no longer over the horizon. Guterres warned that in a crucial 12 months ahead, it is essential that we secure more ambitious national commitments, particularly from the main emitters, to immediately start reducing the greenhouse gas emissions at a pace consistent of reaching carbon neutrality by 2050. And if I'm not mistaken, we only have just but a few years, according to young Greta, before the whole world is going to, you know, just explode, I guess, from global climate change. But now we've got till 2050. They've upped it. I guess that, you know, I don't know. We simply have to stop digging and drilling and taking advantage of the vast possibilities offered by renewable energy and nature-based solutions, he added. Though the aging bureaucrat's words certainly won't go viral, as he can't work in a tirade or the same level of emotive guff about being forced to miss school. Speaking of Greta, she's expected to arrive Tuesday after hitching a boat ride across the Atlantic with the Australian sailing couple. I expect a clear demonstration of increased climate action, ambition, and commitment now. Leaders of all countries need to show accountability and responsibility. Anything less would be betrayal of our entire human family and all generations to come. So obviously, you know, she got enough slack from boarding a plane. So now she's taking sails to get from to and fro. So I'm sure the summit will be over by the time she gets there. Betrayal of our entire human family is what we're facing, apparently, says Guterres. But oops, there's this. A British yacht skipper flight to the U.S. to help Greta Thunberg sail the Portugal has produced the same amount of carbon emissions the voyage hoped to save. And so, even though she's on this sail, she's still emitting the same carbon emissions that the voyage hoped to save. That's just ironic, is it not? Nikki Henderson, 26, flew to the U.S. from Britain to sail a 48-foot Cameton, the La Vagabond. The journey was meant to save approximately 2 or 3 tons of carbon dioxide emissions. But Miss Henderson's flight from Britain's to the U.S. likely produced the same amount of emissions the journey hoped to save, countering Miss Thunberg's mission, the Times reports. As COP25 has officially been moved from Santiago to Madrid, I'll need some help. Thunberg tweeted last month when it became apparent she was in the wrong place. Now I need to find a way to cross the Atlantic in November. If anyone could help me find transport, I would be so grateful. But just like that, just a few summits, the conference involving top officials from 197 countries, which aims to drastically cut emissions through passage of agreed upon targets, will likely be big on hyper sensational, the world is ending alarmism, and light on agreements to reverse course, etc. This is especially given the political and the economic situation marked by ongoing mass protests and upheavals in some dozen countries, from Chile to Peru to Catalina to Paris to Lebanon to Hong Kong to Iraq and more. Given that in terms of the long view, the West has in reality barely recovered from the crash of 2008. Now is a worse and more fragile time than ever for politicians to attempt to shove down radical green initiatives on their populations. Meanwhile, this doesn't mean pressure won't continue to build for the U.S. to stay the course on dubious and political costly efforts like the Paris Agreement. On Monday, it was announced that Google has joined the 70 companies and the union leaders to call on the U.S. to stay in the Paris Agreement. The letter was signed by the CEO, Google, MasterCard, Salesforce, Aon, Tata Sons, Disney, Bank of America, Tesla, Microsoft, Adobe, IBM, Goldman Sachs, Verizon, and Corning, among many others, and marks the start of the 25th Annual United Nations Climate Change Conference. But as one environmental journalist and other observes, this will likely not get far beyond virtue, signaling the moralistic threats and condemnation for those not aboard, like the Trump White House. There were two main problems with the Paris Agreement, writes Rob Lyons. First, there is no international mechanism to enforce the targets that countries declare beyond domestic laws and peer pressure. In other countries, there is no penalty for failure. Indeed, Guterres admitted as much as in opening remarks, what is still lacking is political will to put a price on carbon, political will to stop subsidies on fossil fuels, the UN chief said. Hence the importance of adding the fixture of an emotionally manipulative autistic child's voice, which can induce the appropriate level of fear, dread, and panic over the climate emergency that will immediately usher in the end. And when will they realize that you cannot change nature? You can't. It doesn't matter what you do. It's part of the course. It's nature. You cannot stop. Natural things that occur. It is not because of the emissions. It is natural. And as soon as they realize that, the better off they'll be. But I digress, guys. Okay. So, man. The U.S. Supreme Court hears the gun control case that inspired court packing threats from Dems. And we touched this on AP yesterday. But there was, of course, the article today because, of course, it did go to court today. And this comes from Fox News, guys. It says the Supreme Court took up its first major gun control case in nearly a decade on Monday, hearing arguments and dispute between a gun advocacy group and New York over a statute that restricted the transportation of firearms outside of city limits, even when licensed, locked, and unloaded. The city statute was later amended, but the court heard arguments over the original measure anyway, in a case that could have ramifications for local gun laws. The fact the High Court even considered the case, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus the City of New York, prompted a stunning complaint earlier this year from the Democratic senators, who filed a brief essentially threatening to pack the court absent changes. The warning underscored what could be at stake in Monday's case. The Supreme Court has not issued a significant gun rights decision since 2008's District of Columbia versus Heller. Since the court applied Heller, which recognized the right to possess a firearm for purposes such as home protection, to state via the 14th Amendment in 2010, McDonald's versus City of Chicago, a 2016 ruling in Catno versus Massachusetts, which dealt with the state ban on stun guns, did not focus on the traditional firearms, but acknowledged the Second Amendment extends to other weapons as well. It is unclear whether the case before the court on Monday could join the list of landmark Second Amendment cases. And I'm not going to read all of this because, like I said, we did cover this story, but you can see that this is why all of this uproar over our main man Kavanaugh that got elected into the Supreme Court, and why they are pushing so hard to make everything so irrelevant, because they hope to, which their hopes do need to be destroyed, but they hope that they are going to be able to change and stack everything that our president has done. And hence, of course, they continue to try. So that's what this is all about. In a nutshell, besides, the normal Trump derangement syndrome that they all pose. But we did cover that in detail yesterday. I did read the entire story. And that story is still in the archive of Wixit. It's in there. So you can read all of that story if you choose to. Then we have, while we're on Trump news, did something happen? Did I miss something, guys? I saw Helen ask if it was Scott asked, was it a chemical attack? Huh. No, I didn't see that, Shannon. Where did you see that? On like Craigslist or something? Attack drill in Texas. So they're holding attack drills in Texas from the 3rd to the 7th, and they were looking for crisis actors. Interesting. I did not see that or hear that. But this here article, before my phone dies on me, let's finish up with these news articles. I only have two little stories left. The House GOP report says no evidence for Trump impeachment, warns of dangerous president. Well, of course not. Give me a break. Oh, I hate this, guys. You shared it on Marv's Discord? This is aggravating. I have another one of those articles that doesn't want to load. It's giving me a headache here, guys. All right. Hopefully this one loaded. Okay. Anyway, we all know that the House GOP report said that there was no evidence for the Trump impeachment and warns of dangerous president. It was a really good article from Fox. I'm going to try and get it to load here in a second. I'll go another route to get it. Let me go ahead and do it. All right, here it goes. House GOP report says no evidence for Trump impeachment, warns of dangerous president. House Republican delivered a point-by-point rebuttal Monday to Democrats' impeachment efforts, claiming in their own report that the evidence collected in the inquiry to date does not support the accusations leveled against President Trump or the rise to the level of removal from office. The evidence presented does not prove any of these Democratic allegations, and none of the Democrats' witnesses testified to having evidence of bribery, extortion, or any high crime or misdemeanor, Republicans said in a 123-page report, timed to be made public ahead of the majority Democrats' impeachment report. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff, the Democrat from California, released a statement late Monday, accusing Republicans of trying to placate Trump. The minority's rebuttal document, intended for an audience of one, ignores voluminous evidence that the president used the power of his office to pressure Ukraine into investigating his political rival by withholding military aid and a White House meeting the president of Ukraine desperately sought. In so doing, the president undermined our national security and the integrity of our election, Schiff said telling the minority dismisses this is just part of the president's outside the beltway, thinking it is more accurately outside the law and the Constitution and the violation of his law of oath. And it says, dueling the narratives are emerging following 2 weeks of House Intelligence Committee's hearings, where witnesses detailed their own knowledge of the efforts to pressure Ukraine to launch political probes as the U.S. aid was withheld over the summer. The committee is set to vote on Democrats' final report Tuesday, likely to be another party line moment, before transmitting the document to the Judiciary Committee, which holds its first public hearing Wednesday. House Intelligence Committee ranking member Devin Nunes, a Republican California Oversight Committee ranking member Jim Jordan, Ohio, and a Foreign Affairs Committee ranking member Michael McCaul from Texas penned the minority report, which has been reviewed by Fox News. It is in a broadly defend the president's actions in the face of the accusations he withheld military aid in the White House meeting as the leverage to pressure Ukraine to launch a probe involving the Bidens. There's quite a bit more on this article, but we're not going to read all of it. I'm going to real quick. I do hope I can find this. But there was an article where Zelensky himself said there was no quid pro quo. And he just gave this article. Okay, so here we go. This here from USA Today. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky denies the quid pro quo, pushes back on Trump's corrupt criticism. It says the Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky denied discussing a quid pro quo with the President Trump and criticized Trump's rhetoric about the Ukrainian corruption in the interview published Monday. In the interview by Time magazine, Zelensky denied that he and Trump discussed the withholding of military aid as being tied to a political investigations Trump was asking for. But Zelensky did push back on any use of the Ukraine as a piece on the chessboard of a big global player. Speaking to the magazine and European outlets, Zelensky touched on topics from Ukraine's defense against Russia to U.S. aid and the former comedian and TV star built on his previous public comments that he did not face pressure from Trump. Look, I never talked to the president from a position of a quid pro quo. That's not my thing, Zelensky said. I don't want us to look like beggars. But you have to understand, we're at war, he added. If you're our strategic partner, then you can't go blocking anything for us. I think that's just about fairness. It's not about a quid pro quo. It just goes without saying. Trump tweeted about Zelensky's comment, had absolved him in any wrongdoing, and took it in the opportunity to push back against the House Democrats' ongoing impeachment inquiry. And of course, there's a little bit more to this. But, I mean, come on, people. You have the president of Ukraine coming out and letting everyone know that there was no quid pro quo. I mean, give me a break. What, it's all a political thing. Anyway, and I wasn't going to read that article about that, but I figured I read that one, so I probably should go ahead and put the two together there for you guys. Anyway, and I will put that article in with the Alaska one and everything up there that I didn't put in there for the Wixit site, so you guys can see that as well. The Wisconsin High School resource officer shoots an armed student who wouldn't hand over the gun, police say, and this is from Fox News, guys. It says a Wisconsin high school student whose police say pointed a handgun at a school resource officer and ignored an order to hand over the weapon was shot by the officer inside the school building in a harrowing Monday morning incident. Police raced to Waukesha South School located roughly 20 miles west of Milwaukee soon after the incident was reported. At about 10:15 a.m., local authorities soon tweeted, "The building is safe and secure," and confirmed there was no outstanding suspect. The incident unfolded after a student reported to school officials that a male student brought a handgun to school. Waukesha Police Chief Russell Jack told reporters at a news conference later Monday. He said the school resource officer immediately responded to the classroom and tried to secure the classroom by getting other students to safety. Officers from police department and sheriff's office responded to the scene and tried talking to the 17-year-old male students to de-escalate the situation, Jack said. The suspect would not remove his hands from his pocket and ignored officers' commands, according to the police chief. Eventually, he said the student removed the handgun from his waistband and pointed it at the officers. The school resource officer, an 11-year-old veteran of Waukesha Police, was forced to discharge his firearm, he said. The officers immediately administered life-saving attention and evacuated students from the classroom before placing the school on lockdown. The student was transported to the hospital where the police chief said he is in stable condition. No police officers or other students were injured in the incident. Shortly after the situation occurred, the police department tweeted that the building was safe and what happened was an isolated incident, and confirmed they were investigating what happened. "I am very thankful that the situation was only one person was injured and that there wasn't another situation that could have been much worse," Mayor Sean Riley said. Classes at Waukesha South are scheduled to resume tomorrow, officials said. So we had an incident in Milwaukee, and it appears that it was handled, quickly and without a lot of stuff. And I'm going to try and look here in chat, guys, real quick. I'm sorry I haven't been able to really pay attention to chat with this setup here, guys, and I do apologize. It's a smear campaign against Trump that he can be old. Yeah, exactly. That's all that it is too, Helen. President T and Netanyahu indicted on bogus charges. Well, that's true too, Grace. That would, and they haven't even told us what that peace deal plan was. At all. We haven't even, they were supposed to release it after the election, but it never happened. That's it, Scott. That's it. That's all he needs to say, is he had no sexual relations with Ukraine. Oh, that's too funny. And he is full of it, Vida. That is sure. That is for sure. They even got a folding survival 22 rifle. Huh. I'm just reading stuff that's going on in chat here, guys. That's all that I'm doing right now. Oh, you're so good, Sonny. Anyway, guys, that is what has happened today. We've had more, I think, bad weather and earthquakes that no one really is talking about, and unless you can find Dutch Niece. He always talks about the earthquakes, and he gives you those updates, and he is so accurate. And I really hate seeing what happens to the Dutch man. In all honesty, it is not fair. There we go. But anyway, guys, we're gonna call it for now. I do hope everyone will join me for Bible study at 8 o'clock, and if not, we will see everyone tomorrow at 5, or see you around in someone else's chat. God bless each and every one of you. I hope you all have a blessed day, guys. And we'll see you tomorrow at 5 for more headlines, or 8 o'clock for Bible study. I do hope to see everyone at Bible study, though. God bless you. Have a blessed day, guys.